Welcome to a new episode of Out from the Horrorbox. I'm your spine-chillingly host, Dom, and in this episode we're going to go over the horror anthology television show that spun off from the 80s slasher movie series, Freddy's Nightmares. Then we'll travel across the world to find some strange encounters with humanoid beings, and end the episode with some scary stories. And guys, I just want to add real quick, if you don't follow me already on any of the socials, like Instagram, Threads, TikTok, I'm on Discord. It's all pretty much at Horrorbox Podcast. You can check me out on there. I'm usually pretty good at engaging on Threads, especially if you DM or you tag me. TikTok, I'm really close to getting to 200 followers. And I think that's how many you need. I'm only I think 28 away. Maybe. Is that about how much I'm 30 away? I don't know. I'm pretty close. I think you need 200 to start going live, and that's actually what I've been trying to get to. So if you don't follow on TikTok yet, please follow on there. Once I get to 200, I'm going to start doing lives on there. I'm also going to start putting things onto YouTube pretty soon. I'm working on that. Hopefully, I'm going to start doing some streaming stuff. We're going to get to that. I'm going to start working on. This is kind of just like a little update for the podcast. I'm also going to start working on what we're going to start doing for Halloween. The spooky season's around the corner. It's going to come pretty fast. I'm hoping to do a lot pretty soon. So if you're here now, get into it and, start following. You get more content there. You'll get more of me there, more of the podcast there. And without further ado, let's grab a bowl of all Scaries. Just recently, we've been diving deep into the iconic Nightmare on Elm Street series. And with 5 films already explored and 4 more on the horizon, it seems like the perfect moment to shift our focus to a related project that expands the Nightmare universe in a very unique way. Freddy's Nightmares. Freddy's Nightmares is an intriguing spin-off of the Nightmare on Elm Street film series, blending elements of horror and anthology storytelling. Airing in syndication from October 1988 to March 1990, this television series provides a fresh perspective on the world of Freddy Krueger while maintaining the essence of what made the films so compelling. And unlike the films, which focuses primarily on the character of Freddy Krueger and his terrorizing of specific individuals, specifically the teens on Elm Street, Freddy's Nightmares adopts an anthology format. Each episode is a self-contained story, introducing new characters and scenarios while threading in the familiar, sinister presence of Freddy Krueger. The series offers a fascinating exploration of the broader impact of Freddy's malevolence on the fictional town of Springwood, Ohio, extending beyond the nightmares of a single group of teenagers. The series opens with a darkly atmospheric pilot episode directed by the legendary Tobe Hooper. It sets the tone for the show by presenting a chilling courtroom drama where Freddy is put on trial for the murders of innocent children. The pilot also introduces a crucial plot point, Freddy's acquittal due to a legal technicality. This pivotal moment sets off a chain of events culminating in a vengeful mob of parents who ultimately burn Freddy alive. However, rather than concluding his story, this act of retribution marks the beginning of Freddy's continued terror, as he transcends physical death to haunt the dreams of the living. Each episode of Freddy's Nightmares features 2 distinct stories, with the first half introducing a new narrative and the second half either continuing the story with a new twist or connecting a character from the first. The two-tier approach adds a unique layer of storytelling, allowing the series to explore a wide range of horror themes and character dynamics. Some episodes also incorporate mini arcs, where storylines are developed over multiple episodes, enriching the overall narrative tapestry of the show. Freddy Krueger himself remains a central figure, though not always directly involved in each story. His presence is felt through the eerie atmospheric and subtle influence he exerts on the events of each episode, and his role as the host, which reminds everyone of the Crypt Keeper from Tales of the Crypt, adds basically like a little meta-narrative layer to the series. Freddy introduces each episode with a mix of ominous humor and dark foreboding, providing a bridge between the various tales and ensuring his character remains a constant, unsettling presence. And in Season 1, the series delves into Freddy's origins and the consequences of his actions. The razor-gloved janitor of the Springwood power plant, Freddy's story is one of betrayal and vengeance. The season explores how Freddy, after being wrongfully acquitted of his crimes, is pursued by a lynch mob seeking justice. This act of burning Freddy alive is meant to serve as poetic retribution, but instead it marks the beginning of his transformation into a dream-haunting fiend. The season also introduces storylines involving the supernatural consequences of Freddy's past actions, including a plotline involving identical twins and Freddy's continued attempts to sever their bond. Season 2 continues to explore the ramifications of Freddy's presence in Springwood. It introduces a range of new characters, including a psychotherapist who claims of curing nightmares are tested by Freddy's deadly influence. And other episodes feature a television newsman, a photographer, and an FBI agent, each encountering Freddy's sinister games in their own ways. The finale of the series offers a memorable conclusion, with Freddy hosting a surreal going-away party that ties together various threads and provides a final, chilling send-off to the series. Freddy's Nightmare stands as a fascinating extension of the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise, offering fans a chance to explore the darker corners of Freddy's world through a variety of new stories and characters. And although it was canceled pretty early on, after 2 seasons, I think, it had a lasting effect and was a product of its time, obviously, where we got a Nightmare on Elm Street series and we had a Friday the 13th series, and that one was a completely different story. That had its own unique storyline too from what we were getting in the franchise of Friday the 13th. I think I talked about that at one point, but it goes to show that, and I know we see that kind of nowadays where, Chucky has his own series, and I think they want to give Jason his own series again, and all these different horror series have popped up, but it just goes to show that we've always had these kind of, horror series, if not exclusively based on a brand or a franchise. They've always been there in the zeitgeist, Creepshow is a show now too. The Walking Dead was a show for a long time and has spin-offs. I know that's not really, but it's just an extension of a media franchise. And then American Horror Story too. But I'm just glad that we're getting more of this, and I would love to see I don't know, even if you don't necessarily have to bring this back, but you could give us something similar to this in another form, maybe on Shudder, something like that. I think it's just unique that to see horror on television, because there's so much that originally the reason why obviously is because there's a lot of makeup that goes involved. There's a lot of things that they could do in movies that they can't do on TV. And even nowadays, there's way more that they can get away with, but I still don't think they could get away with a knife-fingered slasher going around cutting up kids. So, maybe we might get something. I know something's coming from Blumhouse. Maybe another Nightmare on Elm Street. Maybe a continuation. Maybe, I don't know, one more send off. It's just kind of strange that, like, and I'll go over this once we get to the end of the series, in the next episode, for the Nightmare on Elm Street series. It's just kind of sad that, like, I feel like Halloween got to survive a lot longer, and Friday the 13th, like, strangely, was like there was like one almost every year, and Chucky got to live on too longer. But I think the thing is that when you built it around like a very specific person who, like, isn't wearing a mask, that's when it gets tougher. You know, like, you can always hire someone else to play Michael. You can always hire someone else to play Jason. You can always hire someone else to play Leatherface. But when it comes to, like, Freddy and I would say, like, Pinhead, like, it really has to be Robert Englund playing Freddy Krueger. But we'll see, right? Well, maybe we'll get something like this. I'm not even saying, like, an anthology series. Maybe we can get, like, a Freddy Krueger, Freddy's Nightmares reboot. I don't know, maybe with something. I'm not saying that that's what's in the works, but you never know. It would always just be good to see, like, just you take something like older and you bring it back. You never know, right? Like Unsolved Mysteries. It was something that everyone loved, and they brought it back in a unique way. I don't know if I necessarily like it that way. I really liked it with the host, and I like that, you know, when they would talk about different stories. But hey, that's what we're getting now. So, Freddy's Nightmares, though, is a great extension of that series. And honestly, I've never really watched any of it. I know it used to pop up every once in a while on Sci-Fi, and I think I caught some of, like, the opening of some and the ending of some. I never really watched it, but it sounds really interesting. It's just like this really interesting snapshot of, like, that time of, like, literally it ended when I was born. So if you haven't, go listen to. We have 2 episodes. The first one that deals with the first 2 films in the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise. The second one deals with Dream Warriors, Dream Master, and Dream Child. And then we got one more episode coming, and then a special one after that. So listen out for those ones, because the next episode deals with Freddy's Dead, New Nightmare, and the remake. So if you want to catch up on that, go ahead. And you might want to catch up on another franchise I already went over, because the episode after next will be one that's been a long time coming. Over the centuries, man has looked up to the stars and wondered what exactly was out beyond the atmosphere. The heavens held celestial beings, the spirits of the dead, or the kingdom for the gods. But as with knowledge comes truth, and those things in space are planets, stars, moons, and still more unknowns. Scouring the internet for all things creepy, scary, or horrifying, I found a great subreddit called r/humanoid encounters. I found a few posts about different sightings of UFOs and beings of unknown origin. I'm going to read these encounters and discuss them after each one. We start off in Great Britain with some bat-like beings, cross the pond down to Mexico to discover a playful entity, and head up north to Virginia near the Washington National Forest to find a tall figure with green eyes. Come along with me as we look into these strange encounters. So the information here is sourced largely from the renowned British ufologist Andrew Collins' report, The Avonlea Abduction. It was compiled back in January 1978, along with other supporting online sources, which I will probably look up. At the time, Collins called the Avonlea Abduction probably the most important British case ever, and it still gets heralded today as such by those in UFO research communities. So on late Sunday evening, October 27th, 1974, a run-of-the-mill Essex family was driving a route between Harold Hill and Avonlea to see relatives. It was the Avis family, consisting of John Avis, age 32, his wife Elaine, age 28, and their 3 children, Kevin, 10, Karen, 11, and Stuart, 7. They were on Hackton Lane, about 1 mile out from Hornchurch, which, for them, the roads were noticeably quiet on a Sunday night. Elaine recalled the car jerking violently as the mist curled around the car at a point in the journey, and it was Kevin, the only one of the children awake, who asked his parents about a light he could see above the country lane houses. Collins reports, glancing around, both John and Elaine saw, at an angle of about 25 degrees, 30 degrees above the skyline, an oval-shaped, pale blue iridescent light, like a big star, over the top of the houses to their left. Just as the mist was seen by the Avis family, the radio started crackling and smoking, causing John to pull out its wires. Then they were engulfed by the fog, still traveling around 30 miles per hour. John and Elaine recalled that it was very light inside the fog, and they felt very cold. A tingling sensation was felt, and there was dead silence. They recall being in the mist for what seemed like a second or two before they were out. There was a jolt described as like a car going over a humpback bridge, and the mist was gone. Elaine remembered asking, "Is everybody there?" And with herself and John both feeling very nervous and frightened, although no ill effects were remembered, and the 2 children aside from Kevin were still asleep. The couple don't recall talking a large amount about what happened, and the situation instead provoked a "let's just get home" atmosphere. The couple expected it to be around 10:20 p.m. when they arrived home, but it was 1 a.m. Leaving around 3 hours the couple could not account for. The family reported unnerving incidents around the family home after the encounter, including an object levitating, and there was noticeable changes in the family following the incident, Collins reports. Before Christmas that year, John had a nervous breakdown and stopped working, before later taking on a job working with mentally handicapped people, something he had wanted to do for years. The job fell into his lap, a different direction from his usual carpentry and construction work. He would also begin writing poems about life. Elaine started attending college and reportedly grew in confidence. Additionally, John and Elaine stopped eating meat and became far more health conscious in their nutrition, with the taste of meat and fish now making them ill, whereas before the incidents they would enjoy a good drink, the couple would now not touch a drop of alcohol. The couple reportedly also became very environmentally conscious, with John also quitting his 60 to 70 a day smoking habit. Kevin's reading age at school reportedly was well beyond his years, whereas prior to the incident it had been reported as backwards of his age. The family reported unnerving incidents around the family home after the encounter, including an object levitating, clicking noises, and the sound of Morse code. And young Kevin reportedly seeing a strange figure beside his bed on one occasion, similar in looks to that of a clown. Ugh. When questioned by Collins, both John and Elaine would admit to strange dreams in which creatures would examine them on long tables and other visions of that ilk. At this point, Collins sought hypnotist Leonard Wilder to query the couple's subconscious and see if these dreams were masking real abduction memories. John was first to agree to hypnosis, while Lane declined, preferring to try and move on and forget it instead. It was decided hypnotizing Kevin was not an option due to his age and the impression any memories may leave. John, and the first under hypnosis, began to remember that as the car entered the mist, he found himself in a big room with tall, peaceful beings in one-piece colorless suits. John recalled that they had pink eyes and communicated by telepathy. They put him on a table and ran a bar-like instrument over his body. He asked where they came from. They showed him a map, but not a map, and gave an explanation of which he could only remember Phobos. They travel, he told them, or he was told, almost instantaneously. They explained how, but he could not understand. A small being was present at the table. It had fur-like covering and made chirping sounds. It served the tall beings. Leonard Wilder remarked to Andrew Collins that John was an excellent subject for hypnosis, and a section was arranged. In the second session, John remembered that when the car entered the mist, a white beam cut through it and lifted the car. The next thing he knew was that they were in a very large room. Here an examiner, smaller than us, with big eyes and a mouth not like ours, examined him. The beings had no visible mouths. John understood that their propulsion system used a magnetic vortex, though he had begun to mutter somewhat incoherently his responses at this point. He encountered only 3 of the tall beings, and only one communicated with him. When John was asked the reason for the beings' visit to Earth, he replied, "No visit, they are here always." Asked where they came from, he said, "There is no need for them to say, and that they have no need to return home. They have more than one base," he said. After being brought out of hypnosis, he said that at this point he felt prevented from saying anything more. Following questioning surrounding the being's origin, many understandings is that the sessions were stopped there, as memories came flooding back naturally outside of hypnosis. Collins reports to have kept in touch with the family, and that John and Elaine would later separate, with the former moving to Scotland to live with a new partner. This case is still spoken of frequently in UFO circles. Andrew Collins did a very accurate report at the time and since, but there has been a number of articles subsequently written by others that are a way of off mark, to say the least. For instance, contrary to some reports, the witness is neither uneducated nor unskilled, far from it in fact. People seem to forget that John was an actual abductee and reported what he believed took place. It was truly a life-changing event for him. That sounds crazy. not that he's crazy and they're crazy, because obviously something happened, right? Where there's this missing time of where it should have been about 10, but 3 hours were have gone by and it's 1 a.m. when you're getting home, and something must have happened. And it's like one of those things where it's like hypnosis is kind of a weird and touchy subject, right? Like where it can, I think we know now, like it doesn't necessarily bring back like those hidden memories or whatever. It's very suggestive, but like then how do you account for what happened, right? How do they miss 3 hours just by going through this mist, right? And then like I don't know, like they didn't want to talk to like the kid, but I feel like they should have like at least like tried when he was a little older. And I'm not sure why the wife, like maybe she kind of remembered and was a little scared to remember. But it's kind of crazy that there's like these like beings that just come and like, but what were they examining them for, right? Because they didn't really say what they were looking for in them or what they were looking for about them. And I don't know, it's very strange. And then the fact that there's these little like bat-like things that work for them, creepy, just very creepy. I would just hate to be like, wait, it's because right now it's like I'm gonna be 2. But if I looked at the clock and it was gonna be like 7, I'd be like, wait, what? What happened? What happened to all the time that I literally just looked and the clock said now it says 7? What? I don't know. Very, very creepy. It's just I like you want to say like sometimes with these abductees that like you just want to discount it, like like you're just like planting these false memories, but then sometimes it's like like you said, like where did the time go though? Like what did he do in that time? Very, very strange. So this is from the point of view of someone who's encountered this entity. My first encounter with them occurred in Ciudad de Mexico, where I'm from, around Dia de los Muertos. That's also the Day of the Dead of 2020. It was my shared room with my sister. We had the light off because it was already late at night, maybe past 12 a.m., and we were about to sleep. My sister was in the top bunk watching her phone. At some point, I changed my position to lay on my side while I was watching my phone. That's when I feel how someone crawls up to my bed and Big Spoon cuddles with me. They were about my size and weight, then 14, now 18. So I thought it was my sister, who's very thin and slightly taller than me. When I was about to ask her what she was doing, and she never cuddles with me, and even less without asking first, when I noticed her phone light reflecting in the ceiling. I got so damn scared, I gasped very loudly, got up and turned on the lights in less than a second. I looked back at my bed in terror and nothing. My sister was annoyed and confused and asked what the fuck just happened. She told me that at first she thought it was me sleepwalking, as it had occurred that I opened the door or went out sleeping not too long ago. When I explained to her that what just happened, she looked horrified. I didn't turn down the lights for like an hour. I was terrified at the thought of it happening again. The next day I told my mom and stepfather about this. My stepfather suggested that maybe it was my deceased father who came to visit for Dia de los Muertos. I found that theory heartwarming and stopped thinking about it. Then, for the next year, I started to feel like someone was watching me. They tapped my shoulder, tickled my feet, touched my back. This happened more than when I was doing stuff that I liked, like drawing or listening to my favorite music. I got to see them a few times. They were pitch black with big white flashlight-like eyes. Curious eyes. With long legs and arms that could touch the floor because it was always hunched over. They were always hunched over, so they always looked about 1.5 meter, but I think they were about 2 meters tall. Then I moved to a school area. There's always a lot of people from all age ranges. The most important reason for the gathering of people being a college, which brings together a lot of students and professors and residents, and they take the opportunity to have their businesses. It's always very lively. I suppose that's why they stopped following me. There's just too many people. And so I think a lot of that was probably translated over, like he wrote it in Spanish, and that's why it kind of sounded the way it did. But overall, I think you understand what happened, like that this whatever it or these entities are were coming to him, and he saw, like he said, he saw them. They were big. Or I don't know, 2 meters, I guess. Is that tall? I don't know. I'm here in America, so I don't know how tall 2 meters is. So I think that's pretty tall, because I think meter stick and then 2, I think that might be about as tall as me. But then they're always hunched over, and it's just kind of crazy. Like, you see these things, these entities, right? And they can hide from people, but like every once in a while you get to see them, and like the way that it said, like it had like flashlight like eyes. It's kind of crazy too. Kind of reminds me of like the creatures from, if you've ever seen Attack the Block, except those have like the teeth that were like bright, like they're like pitch black creatures, but like the teeth were very lit up. But these things, obviously their eyes were lit up. It's kind of creepy, kind of crazy. I guess it's like they were there to be. I don't know. Like, it's kind of weird. Like you said, like they would tap his shoulder, tickle his feet, like touch his back, but like nothing really crazy, nothing really mean or malevolent. It just seemed very like you said, playful, very innocent of them, like more curious and wondering. And it just, and like you said, then when he went to be in when he moved to college, or a college or a place where there was a lot of people, that's when like they stopped and stopped following him. But still, like, even if they didn't do anything creepy, bad, malevolent, messed up, it's still a little creepy that they're just hanging around there. This last story also is from the point of view of the storyteller. In 2023, Virginia, USA, I saw this one night near George Washington National Forest. It started off as a normal night driving around back roads, blasting music, just hanging out, catching up with a friend. We pulled up to a sharp turn, and as soon as we started slowing down, I noticed something standing behind a tree at the turn. Its eyes were green and glowing, but when the lights from the car illuminated the tree, the figure stayed black, its eyes being the only thing glowing. Almost like the way light hits an object and it's supposed to bounce off didn't work on its body. It's just like the light gets pulled into just darkness, not skin. Like Vanta Black, but alive. At first I thought it was a deer, but this is a gravel road where the tree line starts almost at the edge of the gravel, and when we got closer I noticed this thing was tall. I'm not sure if it had antlers or it was just the branches without leaves, but I'm 6'2", and this thing was as tall as me, or maybe even taller. I didn't say a damn thing because I thought I was still just high as fuck or something. Well, maybe my friend took the turn slow because it was basically a right angle and then stopped. When she stopped in the middle of the road, she turned the music off and asked, "Did you see that?" And I said, "Yeah, I thought it was a deer, but it looked way too big to be one." She said, "I was thinking the same thing." So she started looking for her flashlight, and when I grabbed the baseball bat from her back seat, we got out, and it had been about almost 2 minutes that had passed since we stopped and got out. We walked to the same tree we thought we saw the thing, and didn't see anything or anything else. We looked around and nothing. The tree was hiding. It was hiding behind a small. I mean, if you're a big guy, it would barely cover your shoulders if you're trying to hide behind it. And for sure not covering your belly, nose, or butt if you were standing alongside it. Well, we got freaked out, and we didn't hear leaves rustling or sticks breaking from someone running, so we got back in the car and left to get the smoke spot for the night. It's just a pull off down the side of the same gravel road, but a little ways down. We got out of the car, and I started drinking again. When we heard that what sounded like a coyote howl and leaves rustling around us, so being dumb 20-year-olds, we just opened the doors of the car and turned the music on full blast to try and scare them away. I took a piss in front of the car, and when the music started blasting, we started dancing together in front of the headlights. In my piss. Gross. We laughed about it and had a good time. The whole time I felt like we were being watched. That feeling you get when someone is staring at you, always there, but we didn't really care. I drew the picture at work. This had a picture posted with it the next day, and I sent it to her, and she said it kind of does look like it, but she doesn't want to talk about it anymore. I still don't know what it was, but I'm glad she was sober because I thought I was just high and seeing shit. Now to 2024, January. She lives near there and says she hasn't seen it again, but later on in the winter we went sledding at night. We work night shifts, so we usually do random shit in the dead of night. near her house, and when we were walking down a trail to get a bigger hill, we heard loud bangs like a door being slammed open and shut. There was a full moon with snow on the floor, so you could still see really well at night. And there was a house on the top of the hill I noticed when I looked up. So I asked her if she thinks her neighbors are mad. Well, then she told me that her neighbor had died recently and that no one lives in that house now. So we walked back to her place and just kept sledding there instead. No feelings of being watched that time. It's kind of creepy. That's kind of creepy to come across something, you see it in the tree line, so just standing there looking at you. And it's not just you that sees it, it's you and your friend. And then you go to investigate and there's nothing there. It's kind of creepy. And then I like that he tacked on, there's this other kind of paranormal event that went on, the neighbor had died at the house on the hill, but then there was loud banging coming from maybe from the house. They're not sure, that that's where he is thinking that it's coming from, but still at the same time, what if it is? What if it's whatever was out there is there and just banging the door to get their attention, to go up there to get them? I don't know, man. Sometimes, these stories are a little creepy. Sometimes, like that, where, I don't know, I'm always scared of something like that happening, because I always remember hanging out with my friends, and we'd go some pretty crazy places. We go out to, Superstition Mountains. We go further out into, the woods, and just, on the reservation. And you drive to a spot where there's, no one else around, and there's maybe some trees or something, but there's a lot of gravel, like he was saying, or something like that, or just abandoned buildings. And it's you never know what could just be there. Even if it's not, something not supernatural, not paranormal, just even just a person just hanging around there, that's even creepy too. Because you never know, right? It could be someone was up in the house banging around, waiting for them to come investigate. Who knows? All kinds of creepy. Encounters with UFOs and unknown beings have happened throughout history. What makes one area more susceptible to other encounters over any other? Are people seeing exactly what they are reporting? Could these all have rational explanations? Sometimes the truth is stranger than fiction. Sometimes we think we see things. Sometimes they're just shadows. But then other times other people see what we're seeing. So how do you explain that? Is that just mass hysteria? Is that just the collective consciousness? So when that happens, how do you explain that? There are multiple sides to every story. And even if the explanation is something mundane, there's so many things out there that we still don't know and will remain unknown. So remember to keep your eyes open and check every shadow. Alright guys, to kind of end things off for this episode, we got some scary stories. I try and find ones that you can shut all the lights off, lay out in bed, and get spooked enough to check the corner for the shadows, to check for all the little creaks that come on the floor, every little bump that comes in the night. So let's start off with this first story, a creature in the night. Only had one that was truly beyond for me. I was 19 at the time. Buddy of mine was on leave at the USMC visiting. Going to sleep, I let him sleep in my bed, and I took the couch. The couch was one of those L-shaped sectionals. The short part of the L was at my feet, and there was an ottoman in front of the couch in that little area. Had one of those little weird sleeps where I woke up before opening my eyes. When I opened them, I saw a creature standing right next to the ottoman, within arm's length. There was a light on in the hallway, so it was like a silhouette from the light behind it. Not enough light from the streetlight to come to make super clear from the window behind me. It was about 3 to 4 feet tall. All I can remember from its features is that it had super greasy hair covering most of its face. I saw it as soon as I opened my eyes and just closed my eyes back shut and turned around to face the back of the couch/window. I don't know how to describe it, but it was like the moment I saw it, my entire body was filled with terror and dread. As soon as I turned around, I heard like a loud whisper in my ear, thoughts, "I saw you see me. Don't act like you didn't." Even more terrified, I just stayed silent. Didn't move, and basically was praying until I eventually fell asleep. At some point I heard my buddy wake up and use the bathroom and lay back down. I probably would have forgotten about it, except the next morning when eating breakfast, my friend mentioned that he woke up in the middle of the night to use the bathroom and felt like the house was haunted. Gave me the heebie-jeebies. I've only had sleep paralysis, lucid dreams, false awakened dreams, and this wasn't any of those. The only truly supernatural thing I ever saw that I couldn't explain away. Yeah, that sounds creepy. You just imagine like opening up your eyes in the middle of the night and there's just like this thing just waiting there, just standing there, and then you let's just try and ignore this. let's just turn around and ignore this. And you do, and then it just whispers in your ear. It's like, "I saw you see me." Like, that's creepy. I think I'd freak out and start yelling or shouting or whatever. I don't know. Just imagine, like, I don't know. It sounds so creepy. Like, just to wake up and just to see something like that, and then for it to whisper in your ear. Oh God, man, that's creepy. That's really creepy to me. Ugh. Our next story is called Glassy. Oh boy, my family has a lot of stories, courtesy of my mom. Back in 80s South Africa, she and her friend got into playing Glassy, which is similar to a Ouija board, but without a board. It was all fun and games until they started communicating with something that went by the name of Zippo and claimed to have been a murderer in life. Zippo only wanted to speak to my mom, and they didn't take it seriously, asking ridiculous questions. Over separate sessions, Zippo grew aggressive, saying awful things that my mom refuses to elaborate on. She firmly announced that she would no longer talk to him. The glass they used spun around aggressively, traveled down the length of the table, and fell off. Moments later, a crucifix fell from the wall. My mom never played Glassy again. It's worth noting that this all happened in a house that had previously been used by the town mortician, who would lay out bodies in body bags on the lawn. My mom still has nightmares about that house, and she believes that there was something very, very wrong with it. Another incident from South Africa during the same time period involved my uncle. He had been out drinking with his friends and they decided to drive home. I'm told road safety and rules were more lenient, almost non-existent in South Africa then. As they were driving, he had a premonition that they would die in a fiery car crash. Although he mostly brushed it off, he asked to be dropped off on the side of the street and walked home. The next morning, the police arrived at the house and informed my grandma that my uncle had died in a car crash. My grandma replied that no, he was asleep in bed. It turned out that his 4 friends had indeed died in a fiery car crash, some burning alive and pleading for help from bystanders who couldn't help. And that's why you guys don't mess with Ouija boards. No matter what, even if in your culture you have something that's called Glassy, you don't play with them, because then something like this happens where you introduce a spirit or a demon or something and you allow it in and it just keeps plaguing you. Oh man, that's kind of crazy. And then like the incident with like his uncle, yeah, that's kind of crazy too. Like just imagine like be like, nah, I think I'm just gonna walk from here, and then the next day everybody's dead. It's crazy. Like, man, like what has to happen for you to be like, No, I'm just gonna walk here. I know I've walked home partially from my friends, but then my friend came and picked me up, and that would have been a long walk. But it's just crazy. It's crazy to think like you can escape like something like that out of nowhere. Like it's just so coincidental that you just happen to be like, nah, dude. I think I'm just gonna skip this one. But then also like, don't play with Ouija boards if you don't know what you're gonna do with them. Okay, or even if you're gonna play glassy, don't just leave it alone. The next story is called Old House. Moved a lot when I was a kid. One house, and one house only did we experience this stuff. It was a fairly old home, maybe 50, 60 years old. No, slept on the couch downstairs a lot. No bedrooms on the main floor. And it's very loud for someone to come downstairs. I would hear the cupboards opening and closing almost every single night between 11 and 12 p.m. Oh, I guess 11 p.m. to 12 a.m. My dog at the time would awaken randomly, jump up, and stare down the pitch-black hallway, growling, with hair standing up as if he was about to attack something. Everyone in the family were always away except my mom and my brother. My brother was on the couch and saw an older man poke his head out in the living room, looking at him, and pulled back. This was verified by my mom when she said he was screaming as if he had just been murdered. We had another mystery man, was like the person poking their head out. A friend was over and in an adjacent room when an older man poked his head around the corner in the exact same way. No one was home but us. I come back from the kitchen and he asked why I leaned into the doorway just to stare at him. I instantly had goosebumps and told him that the story. One night at 1 a.m.-ish, I started hearing a weird noise. At the same time, I was almost used to the weird stuff. The noise continues like clockwork every 10 to 20 seconds. Eventually I get up, flip the lights on, and I look down the hallway where my dog would always stare. My remote control car was driving around the hall, would hit the wall, reverse, and then drive around and hit the wall again. This went on for at least 2 hours before I looked. The kicker? When I saw the toy doing this, I flipped out and ran past it to get upstairs to get my parents. When I did so, I grabbed the car, flipped it over, and instantly stopped moving the tires. My mom thinks I'm an idiot and comes down on me to humor me. We pick up the controller for the car, and it didn't have any batteries in it. So how was it driving for hours? Fuck that house. I'm so glad we left. Yeah, that's kind of creepy, dude. Like, I didn't, but my nana did at like one of our old houses, where she was sitting there waiting for my mom to get home. She was babysitting my brother and my cousin, and they were like little kids, like little. My cousin was a little baby, and she's waiting there. All of a sudden, she looks over down the hall. There's the bathroom. It was the bathroom, and then 2 rooms down the hall, and right there she saw like the bathroom door was open, like some man like with a hat, she said, I think, like poked his head out and was like looking at her. And normally my nana was like, that doesn't really like scare her or frighten her or anything, but she just got like a very bad feeling from it, to the point where she got them together and got out and just waited outside for my mom. Just waited till we got home. I remember pulling up with my mom because she had picked us up from school, and we were like, why is Nana just standing outside with my brother and my cousin? And then she's like explaining what happened, and then it's just so weird, like, to think that, like, man, we have to go back into that house now. She gets to go home. My cousin gets to go home, but we have to come back to the house. So creepy. The next story is called The Smell. I've posted this before. Somewhere around 8 years ago, I was living at home with my parents. There's been a really bad rotten egg smell coming from the garage downstairs for almost a week, and we couldn't figure out what was causing it. My mom started to get sick from it and decided she wasn't sleeping in the house anymore. We tried cleaning out the floor drains and looking around for any chemicals that could have spilled and couldn't find anything. I went to bed one night and had a dream where my deceased grandfather told me to take the charger off the battery. It didn't make any sense when I woke up, but I went right into the garage and saw that my dad had an old motorcycle battery hooked up to a charger. I guess it's like a trickle charger, like charges it a little bit at a time. The battery had gone bad and was releasing toxic hydrogen sulfide fumes throughout the entire house. And that's kind of fucked up, dudes. Like, that they put the battery to charge and it was just leaking out that gas. Like, just imagine, okay, even if whatever you want to say, like, supernatural about, like, oh, like his grandfather coming to him in a dream to take the charger off the bat, like, whatever, like, that really would have killed them all. Like, if they had let it, like, just stay on there. And, like, I'm kind of glad, like they didn't die, right? But it's just, like, how did he not know that, like, also, like, coming from, like, I get that you could think of, like, oh, it's this, it's that. But it just took them so long to figure out that, like, it was, like, the old motorcycle battery. Just kind of crazy when you think about it. Like, how, like, little things like that can just, like, solve such big mysteries. Something simple as, like, maybe he just had saw his dam, right, put it on the charger, and he forgot about it, and then, like, later, like, in his dream, yeah, it was his grandpa that told him, like, quote unquote. But yeah, like, maybe it's like or maybe it was actually like his subconscious, and, like, he's like, oh, you know what, we didn't check the battery. Then you go and check, and then, yeah, that's what it ends up being, where it's releasing toxic hydrogen sulfide into the entire house. Just so crazy. Like, they were literally that close to death. Crazy. Our next story is called A Few Stories. Came home from a vacation. Was unpacking in my room. I had just this dark, unpleasant feeling come over me. Then I heard this guttural, gurgly, demonic sound in the next room. I've heard it in movies, just can't remember which. Think possessed little girl who doesn't use actual words. I immediately told it to get the fuck out, and it did. LOL. Then when I was younger, I was working, renovating a large building that didn't have power at the time. I was moving some things from one room to another, and I saw a shadowy figure walk a few feet behind me. Rented an old house when I was younger. Lots of weird things happened there. You could hear cabinets closing in other rooms when no one was home. Creepy feeling in the basement, etc. But one night, I went to bed a little early while friends were still hanging out downstairs. So I could hear the sounds of people and music playing still. Settled into my bed, and I hear my doorknob turn. Looked up, but the door wasn't open. Weird. So I closed my eyes again, and after a few seconds, I hear creaking in my floorboards as if someone is stepping. Slowly, I hear steps slowly coming up from the door and around the side of my bed to the head of my bed. I was too scared to open my eyes. And I don't blame that guy. Like, just imagine, that's kind of where it ends right there, but it's kind of creepy. Like, you hear like that, just to hear like that, like, demonic, like, or whatever, or like the way he says, it's like possessed little girl who doesn't use actual words, but I don't know, I'd love to hear, like, an example of that, like, what he means. And then just, like, hearing about, like, the house, and I wonder if, like, he ever looked into it and whatever, checked to see maybe, like, something weird happened, someone died there or something. I mean, because I couldn't be putting up with no cabinets slamming, closing, in other rooms when you know, like, no one else is home, you know, being in the basement and having that creepy feeling, no one walking around when I'm trying to sleep. That's ridiculous. No, I ain't doing that. Like, I'd be making sure, like, you know, did something happen here? So weird. God, just very creepy. And our last story, haunted house. An old plantation house that was abandoned now, but we still own it. One time we heard something jump off a bed upstairs and footsteps right after, like a dog, but the only dog in the house was right next to my feet. The sound repeated every 10-ish minutes for at least an hour. Only after I checked the room did the sound stop. Another time I was home alone and heard a loud crash, like something got smashed. I ran into the dining room where I heard the noise, and the giant painting above the fireplace was on the ground, very broken. However, the giant nail holding the painting in place was still there, at an upward angle. The string to the painting was still intact. The only way that the painting could have fallen off is if someone or something picked it up and smashed it. I then thought there was someone in the house, so I called the cops. This giant ex-football SC trooper showed up, tough as nails kind of guy. He searched the house with me, had his gun drawn, and was visibly shaking. He dropped his gun twice, shaking. He left shortly after, not finding anyone, and floored it out of the driveway. Another time I was lying in bed sick, and there was a closet with an old door handle. It was also really hard to open. It had a giant latch, and the wood door grinding against the floor. So here I am in bed, and the handle starts turning. The door opens, just a crack, but it opened. I don't know how, but it fucking happened. I ignored it, and I went to bed, thinking it was a dream, and I was just sick dreaming. You know, one of those dreams you can get crazy. Well, I wasn't dreaming because when I woke up, boom, it was still open. The next day, still in bed sick, I remember vividly my right hand trying to strangle me. I know that sounds crazy, but I was choking myself and I couldn't stop. I had to use my left hand to stop myself. Eventually, I regained control of my right arm and hand, but I never forgot what happened. Same room, same bedroom. It was the master bedroom. Another time, I remember seeing a young girl walk the halls. She was wearing a blue dress and had blonde hair. She never did anything to me, didn't scare me. She was just there. She disappeared after walking into the green room, a room with green walls. This house had like 5 living rooms. There was also a graveyard next to the property. Over time, the land was sold off, so we didn't actually own the graveyard. In the graveyard, there are graves going back to the 1700s, and there's the grave of a baby. Definitely the original owners of the house. We also got shot at by a crazy neighbor on 4th of July. His name was Willie. Why do I know this? He came to our front porch one time, shirtless, to introduce himself. He had a giant scar on his back. He asked us to make sure to put away the lawnmower because people might try and steal it. The lawnmower was on the other side of the property, hidden. The only way he could have known that we had one was if he was wandering our property. Anyways, he shot at us, barely missing my brother in the head. Willie's house burned down shortly after, with him in it. We don't go back there anymore. And rightly so. I would not go back to no plantation building with 5 living rooms and a green room and some girl in a dress wandering around and some creepy door where, like, I don't know, something is coming out of it, making you strangle yourself. And the ghost of some hillbilly who's like, I'm going to shoot at these little kids. Just missing them by, like, inches. Ridiculous. This all sounds ridiculous. Sounds like I never want to go there, never want to be there. Sounds like a place where I'm never going to go. Down in the bayou or maybe in somewhere in Alabama or Mississippi. I don't know. You know, one of those plantations somewhere down there in the south. But yeah, no, that's crazy though. Like the painting thing. Okay, I could kind of see. Like no matter how much you think something's like, it's like there and like stuck in like not stuck, but like set really well. You know, even if the string's not ripped, even if the nail's not turned, like it could always fall. I could always see that. But the fact that like this guy shows up, right? This big police officer shows up, and he's just like, I am terrified of your house. It's giving me the willies. That's when it's also like, okay, so it's not just me, right? Like, it's other people too, right? That notice that there's this like feeling, this vibe that this place gives off. That would definitely assure to me that this place is like haunted. And the fact that there's just a graveyard right there too. And I know it's not part of the property, but it's just, that's also crazy too. The whole thing is just kind of crazy, kind of creepy, scary. I don't know if I'd want to. I think I'd be like, Mom, Dad, why do we have to go here? Why do we have to live here? Just be like, can I just stay with Grandma and Grandpa? Or can I stay with my cousins? Or can I stay anywhere else that's not here? Thank you. But that's it for the scary stories that we got for today. Did they spook you? Do you have any spooky stories? You know, I always love to hear them. Did you watch Freddy's Nightmares? Have you encountered any strange humanoids? You got any strange stories, any scary things like this? Like, did you live on a plantation like that? Where, you know, it was also by a graveyard and had big painting that just smashed itself onto the ground and, you know, had a crazy neighbor? No? Yes? You know, I always love to hear that. We want to thank you all for listening, and if you like what you hear, please subscribe to get every new episode downloaded. Do you have any personal or fictional, paranormal, supernatural, or unexplainable stories? We'd love to read them on the podcast. Please send your stories, recommendations, or anything else to horrorboxpodcast@gmail.com. If you want to show more support, you can follow our socials on Instagram, Threads, or TikTok at Horrorbox Podcast. Also, you can buy me a coffee at coffee.com/horrorboxpodcast. It really helps out. We'll see you next time and hear what comes out from the Horror Box.